Testing letter spacing with the ADA CAT font guide. The allowable letter spacing of ADA-compliant signs is determined in part by the limits of tactile sensation and in part by the ability of the mind to group tactile stimulation. If the letters of the sign are closer than 1/8 of an inch, some people will not be able to separate the letters by touch. On the other hand, if the letters are too far apart, it will be difficult to perceive the individual letters of a word as forming a single word rather than separate letters. The language of the ADA-ABA guidelines specifies that the allowable spacing be at least 1/8 inch and not more than 4 times the stroke width. Since in another requirement the stroke width is given as 15% of the height of the font, we can say that the spacing can be no more than 60%, 4 times 15%, of the height of the font. Whenever possible, measure font spacing between two letters that have vertical strokes at their edges. The gap between an E and an N, for example, provides a good measure from the end of the arm of the E to the vertical stroke of the N. Place the font guide on the sign with the arm horizontal and the pivot at the right edge of a letter. Be careful when moving the guide not to change the position of the arm in the protractor. The left edge of the adjacent letter must be at least as far away as the 1/8 inch line on the arm. It should also be closer to the pivot than the point at which the arm reference line enters the font width window. If the spacing is very near the point at which the arm reference line enters this window, you can be somewhat lenient because the standard allows for 60% of the font height and the entry point is only 55%. However, very few signs will be that close to the limit. In some cases, signs have variable spacing between letters. If you find such a sign, try to identify the closest and farthest letters and test both. For rounded letters such as S or G, test the point of closest approach.